In the dead of night, Windsor Castle's stones echo with footsteps that shouldn't exist. Slow, heavy, dragging. Then, a groan, low and pained, rolling through the deanery cloisters like distant thunder. For generations, staff have reported the same sound. They all give it the same name. Henry VIII. Once a monarch of overwhelming power, now a king reduced to rhythm and agony. His festering leg, rotting in life, seems to walk still, etched into the very stone beneath him. Some say Windsor's walls don't just preserve history, they replay it. Built to protect kings, perhaps these walls were designed too well. Perhaps they never let them leave. Before we go further, tell me in the comments, if you heard those footsteps behind you in the dark, would you keep walking or would you turn back? And if you crave more stories where royalty refuses to stay buried, subscribe before the next ghost wakes. Windsor's haunting didn't begin with death. It began with strategy. Around 1070, William the Conqueror chose a chalk ridge overlooking the Thames. It wasn't for beauty, it was for dominance. From that height, the land could be watched and warned. Windsor became one link in a defensive chain encircling London. Each fortress a stone signature of Norman control. The first Windsor was humble, a timber motte-and-bailey, fast to build, easy to defend, and just as easy to burn. The Normans, obsessed with permanence, soon replaced what could rot with what could last. By the early 11th century, under Henry I, the transition to stone began. Temporary became eternal. Then Henry II reshaped its soul. Between 1173 and 1179, he raised the foundations of the Round Tower, the same stone crown that still dominates the skyline today. It changed more than the silhouette. It changed the way the castle listened. Circular limestone walls bent sound in strange ways, carrying whispers further, merging past and present into one continuous echo. Stone behaves differently from wood. Wood lives, then decays. Stone absorbs and remembers. Temperature, vibration, footsteps all sink into its grain. A sound made centuries ago can still feel fresh if the walls choose to play it back. The Normans thought they were building a fortress. Instead, they built a memory machine. What began as protection became preservation. A design so enduring that it didn't just guard kings. It kept them. Windsor's second life began under Edward III. Between 1348 and 1377, he reshaped the fortress into a stage. Norman walls gave way to the soaring grace of Gothic stone. The Order of the Garter demanded spectacle. So St. George's Hall rose as a throne of ceremony, and the first phase of St. George's Chapel followed, its pointed arches proclaiming both devotion and dominance. This was the dawn of Windsor's Gothic age, when defence evolved into display. The old castle had guarded the body. This new one exalted the soul. The perpendicular Gothic style favoured height, symmetry, and vast sightlines. In life, this allowed monarchs to fill entire chambers with their presence. In haunting, it allows absence to feel alive. A figure seen at the end of a gallery can vanish without turning a corner. Vertical ribs pull the eye upward. Fractured light blurs distance. The very geometry conspires to deceive perception. It flatters royalty and invites apparitions. Sound behaves the same. Under a fan-vaulted ceiling, even a sigh can glide from one end of the hall to the other, bending until it feels whispered directly beside you. Groans and whispers linger, while clear words die away. The architecture itself gives shape to voices without bodies. Then there are the hidden paths, back stairs, clerical corridors, discreet links between chapel and chamber. They were built for privacy. Today they feel like thresholds, places where time thins. Witnesses speak of shadows crossing before the living arrive. Each century layered itself atop the last. Gothic arches rose from Norman stone. Medieval walls absorbed every coronation, confession, and silent grief. Windsor didn't replace its past. It stacked it. It is no longer just one castle. It is every version of itself, echoing at once, waiting for the next ghost to walk its halls. The Tudors didn't just rule Windsor, they performed in it. Their reign turned the castle from fortress to theatre, and some actors never left the stage. Henry VIII remains the loudest. In his final years, his ulcerated leg forced him to drag himself through the deanery cloisters. That rhythm is still heard today. Guards describe slow, laboured steps, followed by groan that rise and fall with the storm. On wet nights, the echoes deepen, as if the stone itself is replaying his pain. Staff insist it isn't mere acoustics. It's a recording of suffering. Anne Boleyn is the opposite. Silence, not sound. She appears in a single window of the Dean's cloister, sometimes whole, sometimes headless. Not raging, mourning. Witnesses don't speak of fear, but sorrow. Her haunting feels less like a threat, more like a moment trapped in grief. Elizabeth I patrols with precision. In the royal library, witnesses often hear her before they see her. The sharp click of heels on wood, the faint scent of fabric and smoke. In 1897, Lieutenant Carr Glynn saw her glide past. In 1992, a staff member turned to see her standing in the doorway, staring, before stepping backward into solid wall and vanishing. All three converge in St. George's Chapel. Once meant to lift hymns toward heaven, its fan vaults now return whispers, sighs, and unseen steps. The Tudors filled these halls with spectacle, and the stone kept it. Their performances ended, their echoes didn't. All that emotion needs a container, and at Windsor, that container speaks back. The castle's architecture doesn't just hold sound, it multiplies it. In those long, stone-lined corridors, a single footstep doesn't fade. It returns, then returns again. One becomes three, not pursuit, but reflection. Guards walking alone often describe the sensation of being followed. Every vibration echoing in perfect rhythm behind them, like an invisible procession marching just out of sight. Under the fan vaults of St. George's Chapel, whispers refuse to die. The smooth limestone ribs act like stone mirrors, focusing low frequencies while scattering high ones. A soft murmur in one corner can travel the entire hall and arrive, impossibly, right behind your ear. It's not imagination. It's geometry manufacturing intimacy, turning even silence into touch. Temperature joins the performance. Windsor's massive stone walls store cold like memory, releasing it in sudden drafts that move with unnerving precision. Air slips through old sally ports and sealed stairwells, brushing past ankles and shoulders like someone passing by. Science offers terms: infrasound, resonance, stratified airflow. But none of them dispel the atmosphere. If anything, they make it worse. Because Windsor Castle wasn't just built to defend monarchy, it was built to amplify it. Every joy, Every prayer, every scream that ever passed through its chambers still lingers in the stone, waiting for the right moment to answer back. Some spirits don't wander. They wait, listening for the next footfall in the dark. Some presences remain tethered not by will, but by the boundaries built around them. Confinement and eternal vigil, two conditions that Windsor's architecture seems to perfect. Every window and corridor sets a border, and within those borders, history still breathes. King George III's haunting is remembered not for fury, but restraint. During his worst illness, he was confined to the room below the royal library, a modest chamber overlooking the castle's upper ward. There, he passed his final years, isolated within sight of the world he could no longer join. That single window was his link to life beyond confinement, framing the routines of guards and courtiers that continued without him. Today, watchers still speak of his figure appearing there at night, pale, upright, watching. Often, as the guard detail passes, the apparition raises a hand in slow salute. Not the command of a sovereign, but the recognition of one soldier to another. The architecture of his imprisonment has become the framework of his return. The window, once his only exit, now holds him in perpetual observation, a threshold where duty and solitude endure together. On the long walk, Windsor's sense of order extends into open air. The 3-mile avenue stretches straight from the castle gates toward the horizon, planned for procession and precision. In 1927, an 18-year-old grenadier guard ended his life along that path. Weeks later, Sergeant Leake reported seeing him approach from the distance, uniform perfect, stride unwavering, as if relieving him on duty. When the phantom reached saluting distance, it dissolved into mist. The geometry of the long walk leaves no room for wandering, its symmetry enforcing direction and repetition. Even in death, that young soldier keeps his route, an eternal patrol along line, too straight to escape. Windsor's order defines its ghosts as much as its architecture does. In grand halls wait the ghosts of power, Elizabeth I in regal silence, Henry VIII reduced to sound and suffering. In quiet chambers linger the ghosts of pain, George III's lonely vigil, a guard walking endless miles beneath invisible watchtowers. Each repeats a motion once required, every haunting a continuation of ceremony. These repetitions turn the castle into a system both mechanical and mournful, choreographed by the very structures meant to contain it. Yet above all, these visible patterns lies something less accessible, something deeper. Beneath Windsor's perfect symmetry spreads another realm, where the architecture of memory continues in silence below the stone. Far below the courts of kings lies a hidden world shaped by stone, faith, and finality. This underrealm, known quietly among historians as the Subterranean Kingdom, is less an extension of Windsor Castle than its mirror. Beneath the polished floors of St. George's Chapel, where hymns still lift toward the rafters, tunnels and vaults descend into a silence the living rarely break. The first and largest chamber is the Royal Vault, commissioned by George III and constructed between 1804 and 1810. Conceived as a lasting monument rather than a mere tomb, it was the king's declaration that monarchy should be eternal. Above and below, the vault stretches beneath the chapel's nave like a secret hall of state. Here lie George III himself, along with George IV and William IV, their coffins arranged with ceremonial precision. The arrangement feels less like burial than repose, as though the kings remain on standby, awaiting the quiet sound of duty's recall. Deeper within the chapel, below the choir, an older vault holds the uneasy company of Henry VIII, his third wife Jane Seymour, and King Charles I. For more than a century, Charles's resting place was forgotten, until 1813, when workmen breached the sealed space by accident. The Prince Regent ordered the coffin opened. Inside lay the unmistakable evidence of his execution, vertebrae cleanly cut by the axe that ended his reign. Sir Henry Halford's report confirmed the grim find, turning rumour into record and restoring the king's last chapter to history. Beyond the burial chambers run the passages of Windsor's defensive body. Archaeological surveys and blueprints confirm a medieval sally port beneath the round tower, broad enough for armed men to move unseen toward the outer ditch. Other routes belong to legend. Local tales speak of 15 or more secret tunnels reaching into Windsor town, supposedly used by Charles II during nocturnal visits to his mistress, Nell Gwynn. No proof, only persistence, which, at Windsor, often amounts to the same thing. Declassified security plans from the 1930s reveal yet another covert route. A concealed staircase descending from the sovereign's private apartments to the south terrace. A path of deliberate invisibility. Even the foundations participate. The chalk bedrock under the castle acts as an acoustic bridge, carrying each vibration through the walls like memory itself. Movement above resonates below, linking the living to all that lies interred. Down here, hierarchy dissolves. Kings, courtiers, and soldiers share the same airless stillness, a hidden architecture built to contain what time cannot erase. And in those depths, the castle's purpose becomes unmistakable, a structure where remembrance is engineered, ready to rise again through the stones above. Windsor Castle endures as more than a stronghold. It is an instrument of memory, shaped by design itself. Every vault and corridor crafted for authority also created the perfect conditions for resonance. The same vaulted ceilings that carried hymns now return whispers. The same limestone walls that guarded monarchs now echo with their remnants. The ghosts of Windsor are not accidents, but consequences, born from material, proportion, and purpose. What once protected kings in life now confines their presence in death. This castle does not merely remember its rulers, it keeps them. If a fortress can hold its ghosts, does a king ever truly die?